Men's and women's soccer compete in away and home conference matchups this week. Volleyball, cross country, and esports continue on with their seasons. Pitt is back from their bye week, and the Steelers take down the Ravens, while just 2 teams remain undefeated in the rest of the NFL. And who's the contenders and who is a pretender in the NFL so far? It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Natalia Hillen. The Point Park men's soccer team is on a winning streak. The Pioneers are 4-0 in the RSC after dominating St. Mary of the Woods this past Saturday with a final score of 9-0. At halftime, Point Park had a lead of 3-0 with goals from Philip Harder, Giovanni Pezzi, and with an impressive bicycle kick in the 25th minute, and Matthias Lima. PPU had a 31-2 advantage in shots. In the second half, the other 6 goals were scored by Philip Harder with his second on the day, Baptiste Ferrand, Moritz Sarfert, Matthias Lima, Facundo Nunez, and Moritz Sarfert with the last and final goal in the 89th minute. The men's team has 2 matchups this week. The first one is at Ohio Christian on Thursday, October 12th, and the second is at Highmark Stadium versus Shawnee State on Saturday, October 14th. Switching gears over to the Point Park women's soccer team as they had 2 big RSC matchups last week. The Pioneers played against IU Kokomo last Thursday and unfortunately took a loss 2-0. Point Park was riding a 16-game conference win streak, which included the first 2 RSC games and last year's 10 RSC matchups. This streak ended after IU Kokomo scored a goal in each half. In their second RSC matchup of the week against St. Mary of the Woods, the women's team tied the Pomeroys 1-1. In the 7th minute, Point Park's Vanessa Vasquez shot the only goal by scoring low and left with a setup pass from Mireya Royas. In the 62nd minute of the second half, St. Mary of the Woods' Paige Chickadance scored an unassisted goal to tie things up. Point Park led in total shots 21-3 and mounted 10 shots on the goal. PPU goalkeepers split up their net duties with Maggie Pappas in the first half and Ella Serlin in the second. The women's team also has 2 RSC matchups this week. The first one is at Ohio Christian on Thursday, October 12th, and the second is at Highmark Stadium versus Shawnee State on Saturday, October 14th at 6 p.m. Come and support the soccer teams for their whiteout game while they play at home on Saturday. Good luck, Pioneers. After the break, we have volleyball, cross country, and esports. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now we go to Hannah Bazet to give us a rundown on how volleyball has played this past week. Hannah?
Thanks, Nat. The Pioneers have played 3 times since last week's episode and are still working to turn things around to what's been a disappointing start to their season. Taking things back to last Tuesday, the girls played Pitt Johnstown, where they secured a 3-1 victory. The team had a strong lead throughout the first set, with the score changing from 11-3, then 20-6, and finally 25-13. But Pitt Johnstown was able to pull out a win in the second at 25-23. The Pioneers took the third set 25-17 and then tied up their victory with a bow in the fourth, winning with a score of 25-20. The next game was played against RSC division rival IU Southeast, and the girls came up short, losing 3-0. Despite this, it was a close three-sets score-wise. The team lost 25-20 in the first, 25-23 in the second, and 25-22 in the third. Standout players were Amanda Contoys, who led the Pioneers with 8 kills, Haley Stormer, who had 1 air and 8 kills, and Mariah Perez, who had 7. The final match the girls played was against Midway University, another RSC rival. The Pioneers led the first set 10-8 before the Eagles took control of the set and went on their first run of the game. The first set changed from 15-11, then 21-16, and finally the score ended at 25-19. The second set was back and forth to begin with, the score tying at 11-11. Once again, the Eagles were able to take charge and bring the score to 15-11. The Pioneers fought back and brought the score to 22-21, but it wasn't enough. The Eagles ended up taking the set 25-22. The Eagles ran away with the third and final set, ending the match with a score of 25-16. Point Park's Elise Wallace had 14 assists, Eden McElhaney had 7 kills and 14 digs, and Amanda Contoys had 6 kills. Julia Follador and Haley Stormer both had 5 apiece. Marcella Erickson followed suit with 4 kills that were all in the third set. The Pioneers play again Tuesday at 7 against Ohio Christian and then have 2 more games this week before they have almost a week off to rest and recover to prepare for the rest of the season. That is all I have for this week's Pioneers Volleyball Report. Now we'll send things to Anna Eisman to recap us on the cross country's team's short trip to Shenley Park this past weekend.
Thanks, Hannah. The men's and women's cross country teams competed in the Carnegie Mellon Invitational and celebrated their seniors on October 7th at Shenley Park. In a field of 14 schools, the women's team finished 6th overall, with 3 Pioneer runners placing top 25 in the event. Senior Allie Plazio led the Pioneers for the second week in a row, running a career-best 5K at 19 minutes and 16 seconds, placing her 5th overall at the meet. The Pioneers averaged a time of 21:15 as a team. Freshman Olivia Hare stepped up with a PR to run for the number 2 spot for the Pioneers with a time of 20:47 for 18th place, while Sophia Lee Hauser contributed a time of 21:12 for 24th place. In other news, the men's team had a strong showing, placing 3rd out of 14 teams at the event. Point Park beat out NCAA Division I Duquesne, as well as several Division II schools, including Mercyhurst, Fairmont State, and Glenville State. Yannick Windelben led the Pioneers, running a time of 26 minutes and 29 seconds in the 8,000-meter race. That put him at 12th place out of 90 runners. Luke McKenna finished directly after with a time of 26:36 for 13th place. Also in the top 25 for the Pioneers was Joshua Goslin and Eli James, placing 18th and 22nd respectively. The Pioneers will now have 2 weeks off to prepare for the NAIA Great Lakes Challenge on October 21st in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This will be their last chance to put up some impressive times before heading into the River States Conference Championship meet on November 4th. Good luck to both the men's and the women's teams. Now we go to Kai Gressinger with a recap on how our esports team is doing. Kai?
Thanks, Anna. League of Legends is finally back. Point Park League is starting up again with a new member on their roster. They will be competing in NACE League and have their first match tonight against Minnesota State Mankato. They will be competing Tuesdays at 7 for the duration of the NACE season. The Point Park Valorant team secured their first NACE Star League win on September 27th against University of Flint, Michigan. The Pioneers had a dominant first game, winning 13-2 on Bind. Point Park player Sunseri ended the game with an incredible 4.24 KD. Their second map split was a little closer, but the Pioneers still were able to beat out University of Michigan Flint 13-8, with Point Park players Sunseri and Clark both ending the game with 19 kills. Unfortunately for Point Park, that good luck would soon come to an end. The Pioneers faced off against the undefeated Converse University Valkyries last week and lost 2-0 after a close game on Bind that ended 13-10. The Pioneers suffered a devastating 13-3 loss on Breeze, having trouble facing the enemy Neon Wildfire, who ended the map with a KD of over 5. This unfortunately means that the Pioneers will not be able to make playoffs for the current NACE Star League season. However, they will continue to play out the remainder of the season as they prep for the upcoming Collegiate Valorant CVAL series starting in just 2 weeks. You can catch the Valorant and League of Legends team play live on the Point Park Esports Twitch or watch old games and recaps over at their YouTube channel. In other Valorant news, the Pittsburgh Knights hosted the first official Valorant off-season event last month with their Knights Forge LAN, an in-person Valorant tournament with a $15,000 prize pool. Teams flew in from all over the continent for a chance to win a cut of the prize and to secure bragging rights for the next year. The LAN took place over 4 days with a total of 20 teams competing, including 3 collegiate teams. In the end, Oxygen Esports and Core Gaming made it to the main event. Although Oxygen was favored to win, Core put up a tough fight, claiming the first map of the series with a 13-2 victory on Split. Oxygen Esports would go on to win the next 2 maps, becoming the first Knights Forge champions. With fans flying into Pittsburgh from all over to watch the grand finals, it's no surprise that Point Park's own Valorant team members were there, including IGL Creep, who is diligently taking notes to bring back to the Pioneer team. Those notes definitely helped the Pioneers secure a win in their first match up against Flint. While there are no more LANs scheduled in Pittsburgh anytime soon, the Knights are already looking for venues to plan their next Pittsburgh event. That's all from Point Park Sports. Back to Nat at the desk.
Thank you, Kai, and big thank you to Hannah and Anna. After the break, we break down everything going on locally and nationally. Make sure you stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back.
Welcome back
to
Daybreak.
Chicken Guy opened in PPG Place on Monday.
The bridge would open before the 1 year marks.
To check out the 20th annual gingerbread display.
Share with you this week's ray of sunshine.
We are still somehow hanging around in the playoff.
It gives Georgia Democrats some hold onto the governing body.
Are 200,000 people still in harm's way?
This weather is perfect for those cozy nights indoors.
Welcome back. Now I'll be sending things over to Ryan Tile for all things locally. Ryan?
Thanks, Nat. Pittsburgh sports had a relatively slow week this week. As the Pitt Panthers coming off a well-needed bye week, they are 1-4 on the season, with their only win coming against Warford University. This Pitt team made some big changes during the bye, replacing struggling quarterback Phil Dracovic with a red-shirted freshman, Christian Vaylor. Hopefully this change will provide the offensive spark that the coach Narduzzi has been talking about. This Saturday, they will be taking on ranked 14 Louisville Cardinals. The Cardinals had a big upset over Notre Dame last week. Pitt is a 8-point underdog going against the Cardinals. Pitting from the gridiron to the ice, the Penguins finished up their preseason last week on Wednesday. They took Detroit, the Red Wings, where they unfortunately suffered a 2-1 loss. The lone Penguin goal came from Xavier Ouellet in the first period. The 2 Red Wing goals were scored by Daniel Sprong in the second period. In the third period, Simeon Everson with the game-winning goal for the Red Wings. The Penguins had an offensive explosion, though, versus the Buffalo, as they scored with a whopping total of 7 goals. Drew O'Connor started to strike early in the first period. The Sabres would answer with a goal of their own by Victor Olofsson. The Sabres would continue their own goal-scoring ways in the second period as Zach Benson and J.J. Picard would both punch one in. And from there, the Pens will take over the game, as they ranked in 4 unanswered goals to make the score 5-3 at the end of the second. The Pens continued with 2 more goals in the third, but the Sabres could only muster 1 more goal to make this final score 7-4. They will open up their season against number 1 draft pick Connor Bernard and the Chicago Blackhawks this Tuesday night. A quick note for the game is that center Jake Gensel has been cleared to play on Tuesday. Now let's hear from Steeler fan 7 himself, John Mayer, as he recaps this week's down south against the rival Ravens. John?
Thanks, Ryan. What a game in Pittsburgh this past Sunday, as the Pittsburgh Steelers came back in the fourth quarter to defeat the rival Ravens by a score of 17-10. The Steelers' defense stepped up multiple times to help carry the team to victory, with 4 sacks on Lamar Jackson, 2 of them by TJ Watt, and another strip sack from Alex Highsmith, with the fumble recovered by Watt himself to help seal the game late. Joey Porter Jr. also came away with his first career NFL regular season interception, and it couldn't have come at a better time. With Lamar looking for Odell Beckham Jr. in the end zone to put Pittsburgh away, JPJ came up big with the pick to help keep the Steelers' hopes alive. Shortly after that, Kenny Pickett connected with George Pickens on a 41-yard strike for Pittsburgh's only touchdown of the day to put the Steelers ahead for good. Pickens was dominant all game long against the Ravens, putting up 130 yards on 6 catches along with the previously mentioned game-winning touchdown. Next up for the first place Pittsburgh Steelers is a much-needed bye week with players such as Deontay Johnson, Cam Hayward, Pat Freiermuth, and James Daniels and more on the shelf. The Steelers will hope to get some players healthy and back in time for next week's contest against the Los Angeles Rams in LA. That's all from me this week. Make sure to follow @SteelersFan7 to stay regularly updated on all things Steelers throughout the remainder of the season. With that in mind, let's hear from Bryn Reese about the rest of the sports world. Bryn?
Thanks, John. October baseball is in full swing and the wildcard games ended in quick fashion. The Toronto Blue Jays were eliminated as the Minnesota Twins pulled off a 2-0 series. The Texas Rangers also swept the Tampa Bay Rays, the Philadelphia Phillies swept the Miami Marlins, and the Arizona Diamondbacks swept the Milwaukee Brewers. Arizona advances to the divisional series against the LA Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks have an impressive start in the series. Arizona is up 2-0 after Game 1 ended 11-2 and Game 2 ended 4-2. LA's postseason pitching continues to have trouble as Game 1 starter Clayton Kershaw gave up 6 runs in his first inning, and Game 2 starter Bobby Miller gave up 3 runs in his first inning. The Baltimore Orioles had their first playoff appearance in 7 years on Saturday, and the 1 seed is having a tough time against the Texas Rangers. The Rangers are leading the series 2-0 after a thrilling 11-8 win on Sunday. The Twins are tied in a series against the Houston Astros as the Astros finished on top in Game 1, but the defending champs fell to Minnesota in Game 2. The Twins held a steady lead throughout the game, finishing at 6-2. The Phillies are also in a tie with the Atlanta Braves. Philadelphia easily won Game 1 3-0, but Game 2 was an exciting face-off from start to finish. Austin Riley hit a go-ahead home run in the 8th, and Atlanta pulled off an impressive double play in the 9th inning to finish the game off 5-4. After Week 5 in the NFL, 2 teams maintain an undefeated record, and other teams continue to struggle. The Philadelphia Eagles are now 5-0 after a 23-14 win over the Los Angeles Rams. Cooper Kupp had an exciting season debut, finishing the game with 8 receptions for 118 yards. The San Francisco 49ers also remain undefeated after crushing the Dallas Cowboys 42-10. George Kittle had 3 receptions, which were all touchdowns. Dallas's Dak Prescott struggled all game, throwing for 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. The Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars put on a show in London. Both Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen had over 300 passing yards, but several hiccups from Buffalo allowed the Jags to stay in the lead. The game ended 24-20 after Buffalo came close to a comeback. In other NFL news, Jonathan Taylor signs a 3-year, $42 million contract extension with the Indianapolis Colts. He played on Sunday for the first time since December of 2022, running the ball 6 times for 18 total yards against the Tennessee Titans. Week 6 in college football brought even more surprises and upsets. Oklahoma had an explosive come-from-behind win over Texas. The 2 undefeated teams went back and forth for the lead until Dylan Gabriel threw to Nick Anderson for a touchdown in the final 15 seconds of the game. The Sooners beat the Longhorns 34-30. Colorado was finally able to pull off a win after a 27-24 victory over Arizona State. Arizona State tied the game up with a minute left, but Shedeur Sanders met Javon Antonio for a 43-yard pass to allow Colorado to kick the winning field goal in the final 12 seconds. One of the biggest shocks of the week was Miami's 23-20 loss to Georgia Tech. With 30 seconds left, Miami was in the lead and decided to run the ball, fumbling at the Yellow Jackets' 25-yard line. Georgia Tech's Haynes King completed a 44-yard pass to Christian Leary in the final seconds of the game to pull off the upset. As for the NHL, tonight is opening night. The Nashville Predators play the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Seattle Kraken play the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Chicago Blackhawks play the Penguins. Tune in to Pioneer Sideline all season for NHL updates and news.
That's all from me and the rest of us. Back to you at the desk, Nat.
Thanks, guys. After the break, we discuss some of our contenders and pretenders heading into week 6 of the regular season. Don't go anywhere.
Hey.
Good evening and welcome to News Night. My name is Craig Furkowski.
Tonight, we'll cover all your international, national, and local news.
Australia is one of the most biodiverse countries on the planet.
Over 8,000 items are to be auctioned off at Pittsburgh International Airport on October 22nd.
Last Thursday, the House committee investigating the January 6th attack chose to subpoena former President Donald Trump. All this and more coming up on News Night.
Welcome back to Case of the Week. This week I'm joined by Peyton, Matt, and Benny, and today we're going to discuss who our postseason contenders and pretenders are so far this season. So with 5 weeks being done and lots of teams above 500, what teams besides the obvious ones do you guys think are true contenders? Peyton, we're going to start with you first.
Well, first I'd like to talk about the Detroit Lions. And I think if it was any other team and they were 4-1, everyone would be like, yeah, of course they're a contender. But because of the Lions and their history, a lot of people think that the Lions, they're just going to fall off. But this team is for real. Everyone thought Dan Campbell was a joke. He was talking about biting kneecaps and stuff. But this Detroit Lions team is for real. They have a much better defense. Jared Goff can win a lot of games, and I think he can compete in the playoffs. Their division is really easy, and their defense is a lot better. And most importantly, they can run the ball. They can run the ball, I think, as well as the 49ers and the Eagles can. And outside of the Eagles and the 49ers, the NFC is pretty weak, so Detroit has a really great path to make a deep playoff run this season.
So I'm going to have to disagree a little bit because I just feel like, yes, they look good right now, and yes, they have an easy division. I completely agree with both those takes. It just comes down to, do I trust Jared Goff in a playoff situation and in a big game situation? For me, I don't. So I'm going to have to disagree with the Lions there. For me, a contender that I think is going a little bit under the radar right now is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just for some reason, their defense just took a huge step up this year. They did not have that defense last year. These guys are just playing at a top tier level. Held the Chiefs to under 20. Just played a great game in London. So I got to give the Jags a lot of credit. Their offense is what's having a slow start right now. I thought their offense was going to be red hot, but right now I think they're starting to get up to that midseason level where their offense can gain momentum and be hot. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on the Lions, but I will say I do think the Jags are a team that's going too much under the radar for right now.
I do want to say Jared Goff did go to the Sean McVay, and he doesn't have as good of an offensive coach as he did with Sean McVay, and this is probably the best year of his career.
Yeah, but he only scored 3 in the big game, though. That's the thing is, I feel like it's been that way for a while. The Rams lost him, and they immediately went to and won that. So that's just my opinion on Goff. I can understand what you're saying, but that's just where I stand on Jared Goff for now.
Well, going back to what you said, I'm actually going to have to agree with the Jacksonville Jaguars because they've added a key piece in their brand new wide receiver, which is Calvin Ridley. And I feel like by having him, now they have him and Christian Kirk there, and it just provides 2 great weapons for Trevor Lawrence to look at. And I feel like down the stretch, they're only going to get better. So we'll see when it comes playoff time how they do.
All right, pretenders. What's going on here?
This might be a little bit of a hot take, but the Buffalo Bills, to me, are the biggest hit-and-miss team in the NFL right now.
Completely agree.
Josh Allen, this guy is probably one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. But when you take the top away, he tends to force things down the field that he probably shouldn't, and that causes interceptions, and that loses games. Look what happened against the Jets. They shouldn't have lost to the Jets without Rodgers, but he kept forcing the ball downfield. And then, they score 48 points against the Dolphins, and then the next week against Jacksonville, I don't know they didn't get anything rolling until the third, fourth quarter.
Exactly. I think they're one of the most inconsistent teams in the NFL, and I feel like Josh Allen, I just feel like when it comes to crunch time or playoff time, he doesn't perform. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. He kind of chokes in the playoffs. But I also think that they beat teams they should beat, but when it comes to teams that are about their level or even just a tad better, they don't perform well. And we saw it last week with Jacksonville.
I have to strongly disagree with both of you guys. I don't see in what world we call a team that possibly could have gone to the big game multiple years in a row. Last year, his defense completely sold him in that playoff game against the Chiefs. Could not. I mean, the coin toss, sure, we'll debate about that, but at the end of the day, their defense gave up way too many points. Josh Allen comes up when it matters so many times in the playoffs. Now, there's multiple times where that team has choked, but I don't know about him. In general, I say that Bills' roster is just too good. Josh Allen does have a turnover issue, so I agree with you on that, Peyton. But when he's hot, I don't see that team looks really, really good on paper. I mean, they blow out teams consistently, and I see that team being able to make a run. For me, when I look at a pretender, I think about a team like the Seattle Seahawks, because they like last year they went to the playoffs and they immediately lost. They're one of those teams that I just think are going to end up with an above 500 record, possibly make a wild card run, because I don't see them winning that division over the Niners. But just the Seahawks just don't have enough pieces to do anything in the playoffs. And then I also think a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are winning their division right now, I know we talk about them a lot, but I just have to mention that because yes, they're winning the division, but their offense isn't good enough. Those are where I see pretenders. I don't know how you can say a team like the Bills, for me at least.
The Bills are better than the Seahawks and the Steelers, of course, and I think they could win 11, 12 games, but I don't trust them in a big spot in the playoffs in the AFC. I think Cincinnati's going to get hot. I think Jacksonville is going to get really hot, and I don't think they match up with the Chiefs. And we have to remember now, Bills defense, no Matt Milano, one of the best linebackers in football. He's hurt now. Tre'Davious White, one of the best cornerbacks in football. He's out now. And now I have to trust Josh Allen to come up week in, week out. And I don't know if I can trust it because the turnovers are too much of an issue. You can't turn the ball over in the NFL and expect to win.
And another pretender I immediately thought of was the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you saw what happened this past week. They lost by 32 to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, granted, it is the 49ers who are the best team in football right now. But, again, they lost to Arizona earlier in the year, a team they should have beaten. And I feel like we're going to see the same old Cowboys we do every single year. They're going to get to the playoffs by winning 11, 12 games, and they're going to choke in the first round no matter who they play. I feel like that's just how their season always plays out.
I agree when you call them big game pretenders because I don't think they are going to go that far. But I think you have to understand that they are contenders when it comes to winning a playoff game maybe because they did it last year against Tom Brady. So I do have to when you look at that Cowboys team right now,
aging Brady though.
Yeah, of course the win didn't seem like too much, but you do have to take into consideration that they're probably a playoff lock, and I just don't. But I do agree. I do think the Cowboys are one of those teams that are just bound to choke every year.
All right, well, thank you guys. You guys have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things going this season so far, and we'll have to see how what week 6 brings us. Thank you. And with all that speculation, that's all the time that we have this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.